It is SEC Media Days 2019 here in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm Lia Musgrave, very lucky to be joined right now alongside Texas A&M men's basketball coach Buzz Williams. Coach, thanks so much for being here. You guys have been quite busy over the last few weeks.
It's a fast-moving train. I'm glad Lucci decided to send you instead of Logan.
You know,
That's the only reason I agreed to do this is that Lucci wasn't here and Logan wasn't here.
You didn't have to deal with any of them, just me.
Yeah, deal with people that know how to ask the right questions.
Exactly, that's why we're here. Well, Coach, something that you've been saying recently is that you can't let this team step out on the basketball court and play in a game until you've defined the fundamentals of this program. What are those fundamental pieces, the foundation that you're laying right now so that you can get this program to where you want it to be 4 years from now, 2 years from now, even at the end of this year?
Yeah, you don't want to make decisions relative to the week or relative to the month. And I think because the world we live in is so fast, sometimes it begins to, your focus has to be the priority of long term. And how can we make sustainable decisions? And how can the things that we do on a daily basis make sure that we're where we want to be in our future? And so one thing that I constantly remind myself, our staff, our players, what we do and how we spend our time long term needs to be the right play. We can't think that everything's going to go perfect, but we also can't take any shortcuts if we want to eventually get to where we want to be, whether that's this year, whether that's 5 years from now. Try to do things with a big picture mindset instead of just thinking about maybe the first game or the first week. Try to do things relative to the entire tenure of while we're here.
Speaking of that tenure, it's been almost 200 days since you took over this basketball program. Seems like a short amount of time, but also so much has happened since you came back to Aggieland in April. And I want to talk about some of your experiences since you came back,
Sure.
One of those being the Costa Rica trip. I understand it was your first international experience in quite some time, but also probably a really good learning opportunity for your coaching staff, for your players, both on and off the court. What do you feel like you learned about your team from that unique experience?
Yeah, good question. I think all of what you said is what took place. The NCAA allows you to do different things relative to the rules in the summer if you are taking a trip. So you have 10 practice days prior to taking a trip. Our trip was 6.5 days long. It's really not about the 3 games that we played in Costa Rica as much as it's about the opportunity to interact with the guys, to be able to be with them in the film room, be able to be with them on the floor. Can't do a lot in 10 days, but you can at least introduce what you want to be about on both ends of the floor. So it for sure added to our plate in regards to the transition and the change, and it was a lot of work throughout the summer in preparation for the trip. But I think long term, it was good. It was good that they had an opportunity to get to know our staff and what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. But maybe the most important thing, Leah, is not how we were going to do it, but the why we were going to do things the way we were. And I think we're 10 practice days in now, and looking back at what we did in those 10 days of work for the summer, to some degree, they at least know what's going on because of the prep from the summer.
So we fast forward a little bit and we talk about these individual workouts. And it seems that there's kind of a learning curve to everybody involved here because you have these incoming freshmen who have never competed at the collegiate level. And then you have your experienced veterans who have played and competed at Texas A&M and in the SEC but have never been coached in your system. How do you feel like your team has responded to your coaching style?
It's been up and down. If we were a stock, you would deem us to be volatile. In defense of that, I think all of them, regardless of their age, they've tried to do what we're asking of them. It is all brand new, regardless of whether they're a returner or a newcomer. We did 10 individual workouts. In some regards, some of the kids began to figure it out quicker than others. By the 10th workout, there were still guys that hadn't figured out maybe as much as they needed to. But the individual workouts are how we do them is atypical now. We do groups of 4, and we never do less than 4, and we never do more than 4. And as time transpired, Some of the guys began to figure out what we were trying to do and what we were trying to accomplish. But again, that was all brand new. None of that did we do in the prep for Costa Rica. And so regardless of their age, it was new to them.
Has the time that you were able to spend with them in the gym in a way set the tone for what you think is to come this year?
I would say so. Yeah, we had 10 days of practice for Costa Rica. I didn't coach a lot then, and I told our guys I wasn't going to coach a lot then. I don't necessarily think I can coach in the summer and coach them from Labor Day to spring break and think that maybe they're going to be able to continue to hear my voice after Valentine's Day. I was more of a graduate assistant this summer, just spending time with them, getting to know what was important to them, getting to understand what their motivation was, but also having an opportunity to watch who they were as players. I haven't watched any tape from the past because I didn't want to have preconceived ideas. Mm-hmm. And so it was good for me to be able to see them. And then now, through mid-October, now I am coaching, and they are beginning to become more used to the expectation level that we have for them with me coaching. But it was great reps for our staff this summer because they were able to take on a different role, and it allowed our players to get to know those guys in a different light as well.
So we look ahead to something that happened a little bit more recently, which was boot camp.
Yep.
Something that's all about mental toughness and accountability, team bonding, leadership. Who stood out to you in that regard?
It was up and down. I think who was the most consistent was Jonathan Aku. It's very rare. He was not here this summer, but his consistent level of energy and his consistent level of work was a reason why the rest of our guys could count on him to do his job. He didn't understand what his job was, but he did do what was asked of him. And I think that it was, again, a learning curve, just like all of this is going to be. We did boot camp for 1 week. It was short relative to how long it typically is. But as the sessions began to transpire, they began to understand the accountability piece. More importantly, they began to understand the communication portion of that that's important in the accountability. And so I think we were able to learn some things about ourselves, just like you can in any situation like that. But I would say Aku was the most consistent from start to finish.
During boot camp, what did you take away from your players as a whole that you feel will help you coach them better in the future?
I think the intent of their heart is right. I think they want to do it. They just don't know how to do it. And I have to do a better job of teaching them the how. But I think in order for them to execute the how better, they need to understand the why. And so anytime something is new and you don't understand how to do it, you're kind of caught off guard. But if you don't understand why you're doing it, even when you learn how to do it, it begins to be more difficult. And so I've got to do a better job teaching and slowing down no matter what it is that we're doing.
So I want to talk a little bit about the dynamic of this team, because you have this core group of your 5 experienced veterans, and then you bring in 7 newcomers, including a junior college transfer.
Yep.
What are some of the hurdles to uniting them and just bringing them together as one cohesive unit?
It's just time. Obviously, Quentin Jackson has some level of college experience, not at Texas A&M, so he's somewhat of an outlier because there's the 5 returning players. Q has some experience yet as a newcomer, and then we have some freshmen that are going to have to play. And I don't know that there's any easy answer to how you can get them to be cohesive. I think as time has transpired, off the floor, they're becoming more cohesive, which is always a good sign. We've got to figure out how to take it from off the floor where it translates to on the floor. And that's why every day is so important in what we're doing, because that cohesiveness is what any team needs in order to have a chance. We're not there yet because there's not any consistency in that cohesiveness, but we have seen glimpses of it.
A big part of your program is coaching these guys off the court. Right now, do you feel like you're satisfied with the way that they've been developing and growing in that regard?
I would say that we've for sure been the best in that regards. Maybe to my default, I spend more time doing that sort of thing than I do the actual coaching on the floor. I just think in the end, that's the most important part of this college experience. We had 6 Get Better 101 sessions this summer where we were 100% of it is doing those things that you're talking about. And then I would say a couple of times a week, if not 3 to 4 times a week, I find a way to use a situation to teach them specific to life. And in that regard, I would say our grade has been an A.
As we look ahead to the season, I know you've said you're not quite ready, you've got a little bit of work to do, but right now, what are your expectations individually, as a team, and overall just as a program?
Yeah, I would answer it in descending order. As a program, I want to be about the right things off the floor. On the floor, what I deem to be fundamentally sound is what I want to be about. I want to make sure that our effort is at an all-time high every single possession on both ends of the floor. I want to value the ball if you're only talking about basketball. The possession, we need to make sure offensively that we're getting what we call perfect shots and not taking average or bad shots. Defensively, we want to make it really hard for teams to get to the paint. We want to stay out of rotation. And if a team does get a shot attempt, we want to make sure that they only get one. It's hard for me, Leah, to answer individually maybe what I expect of them. What I do expect of all of them, regardless of their skill set, is that they give their best effort. We're not there yet. We have too much up and down in regards to our attitude and our effort. It's not all completely in a disrespectful way. They understand what they're supposed to do, but doing it every day becomes hard. And so we've got to get to that point. As of today, we're off today. Obviously, we're here doing this. We've practiced 10 times. We'll practice 12 more times before our first game. And if you were to look at our first 10 practices and what they've been and what our next 12 practices are going to be, our learning curve is going to have to increase over the next 12 in order for us to be presentable on the first game.
And lastly, Buzz, I know you have high hopes and aspirations for your program. How do you get there? What are the keys to building on the things that you're creating right now?
Just doing it every day. I know that's probably not the right answer. A smart person could articulate it better. I don't really have this long-range 5-year plan because I think my energy and effort is better when I apply it to today while making sure that the things that we do today translate to 5 years from now. And so it's not like I have this big theory of this is how we're going to do it. We for sure have a plan, but more so than the plan, we want to make sure that we're executing the day. And I think in some stretches, in the time that we've been here, we've been able to put together good back-to-back days, whether that's on the floor or in the weight room, in the program, in recruiting, in the office. There's a lot of facets to running a program, but we just need more consistency, not necessarily always in our effort, but in our execution of those days and be able to do it on back-to-back to back-to-back days.
Buzz, we really appreciate the time.
Sure.
As always, looking forward to watching what you're going to accomplish at Texas A&M. We'll
you.
let you get back on the road, back to College Station.
Thank you.
Buzz Williams, I'm Lia Musgrave. You heard it here, folks, right here on TexAgs.com.
Gig 'em.